the blow that changed everything. Some sounds never leave you. They stay trapped inside your mind, echoing louder as the years go by. For me, it wasn't the sound of a closing door or the sharp bite of harsh words. It was the crack of an open hand hitting my cheek in a room filled with silence. I stood in the middle of our dimly lit living room, my left hand instinctively cupping my burning face while my right hand rested gently over my swollen belly. I was 7 months pregnant. The air in the room felt suffocating, heavy with the scent of a floral perfume that didn't belong to me. Standing across from me was Mark, the man I had loved for 6 years, the man who had promised to protect me from the world. But the real danger wasn't outside. It was standing right in front of me, breathing heavily, his eye cold and devoid of any remorse. Beside him sat my younger sister, Chloe. She wasn't crying. She wasn't hiding her face. She was calmly dabbing at her lipstick in the reflection of her phone screen, looking up at me with a soft, condescending smirk. Just 10 minutes earlier, I had walked through my own front door carrying groceries, dreaming about nursery colors and nursery rhymes. Instead, I walked into my home to find my husband and my sister wrapped in an embrace that left no room for misunderstandings. When I confronted them, screaming through tears of heartbreak and shock, Mark didn't apologize. He didn't drop to his knees. He stepped forward, grabbed my shoulders, and when I tried to push him away, he struck me. "Stop making a scene, Sarah," Mark said, his voice terrifyingly calm as he adjusted the cuffs of his expensive jacket. "You're being hysterical. It's over. It's been over for a long time." I looked at Chloe, desperate for a shred of sisterly affection, expecting to see guilt in her eyes. We had grown up together. I had helped pay her college tuition. I had given her a place to stay whenever she needed help. But Chloe just took Mark's arm, leaning into him with a smug triumph. "Don't look at me like that, Sarah," Chloe said smoothly. "Mark deserves a woman who actually knows how to fit into his world. You're just a plain homebody. You were always too boring for him. He only stayed this long because of the baby, but honestly, we're tired of living a lie." Mark pulled a sleek set of keys from his pocket and tossed them onto the glass coffee table. "Pack your personal things by tomorrow morning," he stated coldly. "The house is in my name. The accounts are locked. I've already spoken to my lawyers. You can keep your clothes and whatever you brought into this marriage, but don't expect a single cent of my company's assets. Chloe and I are moving to the downtown penthouse." They didn't even wait for me to respond. Mark took Chloe's coat, wrapped it around her shoulders, and walked out the door, locking it behind them. I sank to the hardwood floor, the coldness of the wood seeping through my clothes. My face throbbed, but the pain in my heart was 1,000 times worse. The betrayal sliced deeper than any knife. My husband had discarded me, my sister had stolen him, and together they had cast me out into the dark while carrying our unborn child. They thought they had broken me. They thought I was weak, helpless, and completely out of options. But as the tears dried on my burning cheek, a cold, quiet realization washed over me. The girl who trusted everyone was gone. In her place, a mother was born, and she would stop at nothing to get justice. Building from the ashes. The night Mark left, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed in our empty, quiet house, staring at the shadows on the wall. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the sharp sting on my cheek and heard Chloe's mocking laugh. But by the time the sun began to rise over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gray and pale yellow, my tears had completely dried up. Grief had turned into something else, a razor-sharp focus. I spent the early morning packing my life into 3 medium-sized suitcases. I didn't take the expensive gifts Mark had bought me over the years, nor did I take the fancy dresses I used to wear to his corporate dinners. I took my essential documents, my mother's old jewelry box, and the baby clothes I had spent months carefully selecting. When I left the house, I called the one person who had always been a steady anchor in my life, my godmother, Clara. Clara was an attorney who had retired early after years of handling complex corporate litigation. She was a woman of few words, sharp intellect, and immense loyalty. Within an hour, she arrived at my doorstep, took one look at my bruised cheek and my pregnant belly, and didn't ask a single unnecessary question. She simply loaded my bags into her car and said, "We're going home." For the next 2 months, Clara's quiet cottage at the edge of the city became my fortress. While Mark and Chloe were making headlines in local society columns, attending galas, hosting lavish parties, and flaunting their new romance, I was quietly preparing for a completely different kind of battle. Every day, Clara and I sat at her dining table covered in financial ledgers, legal documents, and old tax filings. Mark believed he was untouchable. He ran a successful commercial real estate firm that his father had founded, but Mark had expanded it rapidly over the last 4 years. What he didn't realize was that during our entire marriage, I hadn't just been a boring homebody who stayed at home making dinner. I was an accountant by profession. In the early days of his company, when he couldn't afford a full finance team, I was the one who structured his initial bookkeeping systems, set up his offshore shell accounts, and organized his tax declarations. Mark had assumed I forgot everything once he hired a high-end corporate accounting firm to take over. He assumed I was too naive to understand what he was doing behind closed doors. But I remembered everything. I remembered the secret bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. I remembered the shell companies registered under third-party names to dodge capital gains taxes. I remembered every single contract where he understated revenues to keep profits away from public record. "He thinks he stripped you of everything," Clara said one evening, sliding a steaming cup of tea toward me as we reviewed a stack of bank statements. "He closed the joint accounts, cut off your credit cards, and locked you out of the estate. But he made one critical mistake." "What's that?" I asked, looking up from a folder. "He forgot that you hold the master key to his entire empire." Clara smiled faintly, her eyes gleaming with quiet intensity. "He gave you nothing, Sarah, which means when we take it all back, he won't see it coming." 2 weeks later, my daughter, Lily, was born. Holding her small, delicate hand in mine as she lay in my arms, the last traces of fear vanished from my spirit. Looking into her bright, innocent eyes, I made a silent promise. I would make sure no one would ever intimidate us, take from us, or make us feel small again. The stage was set, the evidence was gathered, and the clock was officially ticking for Mark and Chloe. The trap is set. 3 months passed. To the rest of the world, I had completely vanished. I deleted my social media accounts, changed my phone number, and stayed completely off the radar. Mark and Chloe believed I had run away, defeated and broke, living off charity somewhere far from their glittering lives. They were so confident in their victory that they started moving forward with their grand plans. Through Clara's industry contacts, I monitored Mark's business moves very closely. Mark was preparing for the biggest deal of his career, the purchase of the city's downtown waterfront commercial district, a multi-million-dollar deal that would establish his company as a dominant industry force. To fund this massive project, he had taken out astronomical bank loans and convinced his key investors to put up nearly 80% of their personal assets as collateral. He was flying high, completely oblivious to the ground crumbling beneath his feet. Meanwhile, Chloe had launched a high-end luxury event planning agency. Mark had funded her business using money from his firm's emergency reserves, claiming it as a consulting expense. Chloe was posting daily videos on her social media channels, showing off her designer clothes, her new sports car, and her lavish lifestyle, boasting about how she built her business from the ground up through hard work and elegance. They were arrogant, loud, and careless, exactly where I needed them to be. "It's time," Clara said one afternoon as we sat in a private conference room downtown. Sitting with us was Arthur Vance, one of the most respected and ruthless forensic auditors in the state. I handed Arthur a black leather binder containing meticulously cross-referenced bank entries, tax audit records, and original signatures from Mark's early corporate filings. Arthur spent nearly an hour reviewing the documents in total silence, occasionally adjusting his glasses. Finally, he closed the binder, looked up at me, and let out a low whistle. "This isn't just basic tax avoidance, Sarah," Arthur said, his voice laced with professional awe. "If these documents are verified against the state tax registry, your ex-husband hasn't just cheated the system, he's committed severe financial fraud across multiple state lines. He's been moving client escrow funds into his personal investment portfolio to keep his new luxury developments afloat." "Is it enough to halt the waterfront deal?" I asked calmly. Halt it, Arthur chuckled dryly. If this gets out to his primary lenders, the waterfront deal won't just stop. His entire firm will collapse like a house of cards. The banks will recall their loans overnight, his investors will panic, and the state regulatory board will freeze every single asset tied to his name. I felt a cold surge of determination run through my veins. Good, I said softly, because I don't just want him to lose the deal. I want him to understand what it feels like to have the floor removed from underneath his feet without warning. We initiated phase 1 of the plan. Instead of filing a standard divorce settlement or suing him in open family court, Clara filed an emergency financial motion with the State Fraud Task Force and the Commercial Banking Commission. We attached the verified records, requesting an immediate, unannounced regulatory review of Mark's firm. To make sure there were no leaks, we didn't inform Mark's legal team. We didn't send a warning letter. We simply sat back and watched as the gear wheels of justice began to turn in total secrecy. The tipping point. The morning of Mark's grand investor presentation arrived. It was the day he was supposed to officially sign the waterfront contract in front of city officials, prominent bankers, and local news outlets. The event was held at the Grand Regency Hotel ballroom, decorated lavishly with white roses, crystal chandeliers, and giant digital screens displaying Mark's company logo. Through a contact at the venue, Clara and I were able to secure access to the balcony level of the ballroom. I wore an elegant, tailored black suit, my hair styled impeccably, looking nothing like the broken, heartbroken woman who had been thrown out of her own home months ago. I looked down at the crowd below. Mark was at the center of the room, wearing a bespoke suit, holding a glass of champagne, surrounded by reporters and wealthy investors. Chloe was by his side, wearing an extravagant diamond necklace and a glowing smile, playing the part of the successful, supportive partner. They looked like they were on top of the world. They thought they had won. At precisely 10:30 a.m., Mark took the podium. He cleared his throat, flashed a charismatic smile at the cameras, and began his speech. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed board members and distinguished partners, Mark's voice echoed through the microphone. Today, we don't just sign a real estate contract. Today, we redefine the future of this city's economic landscape. Before he could finish his sentence, the double doors at the back of the ballroom were suddenly pushed open. A group of 6 officials in tailored suits, accompanied by 2 uniformed officers from the Financial Crimes Enforcement Unit, walked calmly down the center aisle. The low hum of chatter in the ballroom vanished instantly. Guests turned their heads in confusion as the lead official walked straight up to the stage. Mark stopped speaking, his smile freezing in place. "Excuse me," Mark said, trying to maintain his suave posture. "We are in the middle of a private press conference. Whatever this is, it can wait until after." "Mark Harrison," the lead investigator asked, his voice cutting through the silent room with absolute authority. "Yes, I am," Mark replied, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. "Who are you?" "I am Agent Miller from the State Financial Regulatory Board," the man said, pulling an official badge and a sealed court order from his jacket. "We are serving you with an immediate court-ordered freeze on all corporate and personal financial accounts associated with Harrison Real Estate Group and its subsidiaries." A collective gasp echoed across the ballroom. The reporters immediately raised their cameras, flashes going off like strobe lights. "What?" Mark stammered, his face visibly losing its color. "This is absurd. On what grounds? This is a legal mistake. You are under investigation for multi-million-dollar tax fraud, systemic embezzlement of escrow funds, and illegal asset transfers," Agent Miller announced clearly, ensuring every microphone on the podium caught every word. "All pending transactions, including the waterfront development acquisition, are formally suspended effective immediately." The collapse. The chaos in the ballroom erupted instantly. Investors jumped out of their seats, shouting questions at Mark. Bankers scrambled to call their main offices, demanding immediate loan recalls. Reporters rushed forward, flashing cameras in Mark's pale, sweat-beaded face. Chloe stepped back from Mark as if he had suddenly caught a contagious disease. She looked around the room in absolute panic, clutching her designer handbag, trying to duck away from the cameras. But the press caught her every move. From the balcony, I watched the entire spectacle with absolute calm. I slowly walked down the grand staircase, stepping into the edge of the crowd just as Mark was being escorted out of the stage area by his legal team, trying to dodge questions. As he tried to push through the crowd toward the side exit, his eyes suddenly met mine. Mark froze, the color drained completely from his face. He stared at me in disbelief as if seeing a ghost. I stood there, tall, poised, and composed, looking directly into his eyes. I didn't smile. I didn't throw insults. I simply looked at him with cool, quiet superiority. "Sarah," Mark whispered, his voice trembling so much it was barely audible over the noise of the crowd. "What? What are you doing here?" Before I could say a word, Chloe pushed her way past the security guards, her eyes wide with rage when she spotted me. "You," Chloe screamed, her voice cracking as she pointed a manicured finger at my face. "You did this. You went to the police. You ruined everything because you were jealous that Mark chose me over you." The surrounding reporters immediately turned their cameras toward Chloe and me, sensing the high-stakes personal drama. I took a slow, deliberate step forward, looking Chloe up and down. "Jealous?" I asked, my voice ringing out clearly, calm, and steady. "Chloe, you took a man who hits pregnant women and steals from his own clients. You didn't win anything. You just took out my trash." The crowd murmured loudly. Several reporters gasped, writing down every word. "You ruined my business," Chloe shrieked, stepping toward me aggressively. "My agency's funding was frozen 10 minutes ago. You ruined my life." "Your business was funded with stolen money, Chloe," I replied smoothly, looking her dead in the eye. "You lived on borrowed time and stolen wealth. Now the bill has arrived." Mark tried to step between us, his hands shaking as he looked at me, a desperate pleading in his eyes that I had never seen before. "Sarah, please, let's talk about this privately. We have a child together. You can't destroy my company like this." "Our child is safe with me," I said coldly, looking him straight in the eyes. "And as for your company, Mark, you destroyed it the moment you thought you could abuse your power without consequences." Before Mark could respond, Agent Miller stepped in, placing a hand on Mark's arm. "Mr. Harrison, you need to come with us to the state office for formal questioning regarding your frozen entities." As the officers led Mark away in front of dozens of flashing news cameras, Chloe stood in the center of the hotel lobby, abandoned, disgraced, and utterly humiliated. The press swarmed her with questions, but she covered her face with her coat and ran out toward the street, weeping hysterically. The final justice. The fallout from that day was swift and absolute. Over the next 6 months, Mark's commercial empire shattered completely. The bank recalled all loans, forcing his firm into involuntary bankruptcy to satisfy creditors. His board of directors voted unanimously to remove him from all executive positions. To settle his massive federal and state tax liabilities, Mark had to liquidate his downtown penthouse, his luxury vehicles, and every investment account he owned. When the legal dust settled, Mark was left with nothing, no wealth, no company, no reputation, and massive outstanding debts that would follow him for the rest of his life. Chloe didn't fare any better. Her luxury event planning business folded within weeks after vendors realized her accounts were locked under legal investigation. The social media prestige she had built evaporated overnight. When Mark's wealth vanished, her devotion to him vanished just as quickly. The two of them turned on each other, filing mutual restraining orders and blaming one another for their financial ruin, ending their relationship in bitter public disgrace. As for me, Clara and I fought for complete legal custody of baby Lily in family court. Given Mark's financial insolvency, his history of domestic misconduct, and his pending legal cases, the court granted me full physical and legal custody, stripping Mark of any parental authority. Using my accounting expertise and the legal settlement recovered from Mark's residual non-fraudulent marital assets, I founded my own boutique financial consulting firm, specializing in helping women navigating complex divorces audit hidden marital assets. My business grew rapidly, built on trust, integrity, and hard work. One rainy afternoon, a year after the hotel lobby incident, I was leaving my downtown office building holding Lily in my arms. As I walked toward my car, a man standing near the public bus stop stepped forward timidly. It was Mark. He looked unrecognizable. His designer suits were gone, replaced by a faded, ill-fitting coat. He looked exhausted, aged, and hollow. He stared at me, then looked down at the beautiful, laughing baby girl in my arms. "Sarah," Mark said, his voice quiet, stripped of all former arrogance. Can I just see her for a second?" I stopped, holding Lily securely against my chest. I looked at Mark not with anger, not with hatred, but with complete indifference. "No, Mark," I said softly, my voice firm and unwavering. "You made your choice a long time ago. You chose greed, cruelty, and betrayal over your family. Live with it." I opened the door to my car, placed Lily safely into her car seat, and drove away into the bright afternoon, without looking back in the rearview mirror even once. The lesson within. Life has a quiet, profound way of balancing the scales. When people betray you, cut you down, or treat you as if you are disposable, it is easy to let anger consume your spirit. It is easy to want to strike back immediately out of hurt. But true revenge isn't about chaos or mindless hatred. True revenge is built on quiet strength, patience, and unwavering justice. It is about standing tall in the darkest moments of your life, gathering your strength, and building a foundation so strong that no one can ever shake it again. Mark and Chloe thought they had taken everything from me because they took away material things, a house, money, and status. But they didn't realize that my true worth wasn't tied to their wealth. My worth was tied to my character, my resilience, and my love for my child. In trying to break me, they only forced me to discover how powerful I truly was. Never let anyone convince you that you are helpless. When faced with betrayal, don't lower yourself to the level of those who hurt you. Stay silent, move in quiet purpose, protect your loved ones, and let the truth do the work for you. In the end, integrity will always stand strong, while deceit will always crumble under its own weight. Thank you so much for listening to today's story on Calm Girl Stories. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of the power of resilience and self-worth, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another empowering story. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep sharing powerful narratives every week. This story is inspired by real experiences. We believe that every story carries a lesson that can bring light to others. To protect everyone's privacy, our editors may change names, locations, and certain details while keeping the heart of the story true.